Party leaders have decided that the way to win votes this November is to shout loudly that Republicans wage war on women. Politico reports that this election season, Democrats will make the war on women bigger, broader, and more central to White House and Democratic messaging. This is a proven, persuasive argument. Others in the liberal media are on board. Here's Stephen Colbert playing the role of an anti-woman conservative.
Ava Braun, Fergie, that serial killer Charlize Theron played in Monster, Mrs. Butterworth, all women, all equally special.
More seriously, what is this Republican war on women? What do Republicans want to do to women? Democrats point to crude language used by some Republicans. Rush Limbaugh called activist Sandra Flock a slut. Senate candidate Todd Akin used the phrase, if it's legitimate rape, when he was asked if abortion should be legal in cases of rape. Beyond language, Democrats now say anyone who wants to restrict abortion is anti-woman. And apparently you're also anti-woman if you're skeptical about government fixing the pay gap. In his State of the Union address, President Obama said,
"They still make 77 cents for every dollar a man earns. Women deserve equal pay for equal work."
We'll get to that pay gap later in the show. Finally, the Democrats are proud that they have ended sex discrimination in health insurance.
No woman can ever be charged more just because she's a woman.
That sounds fair, and I would think it would sound good to my two guests, since you're both women. And in fact, this is an all-woman show, except for me. Ending insurance price discrimination does sound good to former president of the Women's Media Center, Jammu Green. But conservative Heather Higgins says this war on women is full of lies. What do you mean, lies?
There is no war on women, well, except maybe if you want to call Obamacare a war on women. They're losing their doctors, they're losing their access, their choices are being constrained.
Come on. It's not just women who embrace the fact that they are no longer being charged more. It's the men in their life also. Women turn out in much larger numbers for Democrats because they look at the two parties and they say, who is representing my interests? And it's not the party that wants to put a politician in between the conversation that you have with the man in your life, the doctor in your life, and the God in your life. And that's what Republicans are doing across the country.
The government is largely interested in replacing the men in your life with the government in your life. And that has been really unfortunate because that constrains your choices further.
Let's do one issue at a time.
Okay.
Reproductive rights. How do the Republicans attack women?
Well, if you look at various pieces of legislation, I think in the past year we had something like over 1,000 bills introduced across the country to try to curtail a woman's reproductive rights.
Anti-abortion.
Anti-abortion.
Well,
And they couch it in terms of we want to do a 20-week abortion ban, but really it's about trying to close as many clinics in the state. And this is going across the country where we've seen rights pulled back. In Texas, it's much harder to get an abortion.
Roughly the same number of women are anti-abortion as men.
Why should we allow the government into the conversation, into the decision we make with our doctor? And then when you look at the insurance part of it,
Only
when
if
you
you
look at
believe
issues
it's
like even birth control, you have folks who are up in arms because insurance plans are going to cover birth control. But since the day that Viagra came out, insurance plans have been covering it. So this is where there's a real disconnect.
Difference. Some cover it, and you can buy it or not. But Obamacare requires me to pay for birth control.
Birth control in and of itself is health care.
No.
It's $12 a month at Walmart.
Absolutely important.
Government
that
has to
women
pay for
and
this.
the men in their lives are able to plan when they want to have a
buy it
baby.
yourself.
When they want to have a baby.
I'm sorry, Heather, hang on. Let me just ask, why is it the government that has to pay? Why
Because
can't a
liberals
woman...
believe you do anything you want so long as they approve of it.
It's not the government.
Let's move on here. Jammu, Democrats complain when Republicans use coarse language talking about women. But you don't complain about Bill Maher. He said this about Sarah Palin.
The vainglorious braggart, a liar, a whiner, a professional victim, a scold, a know-it-all, a chiseler, a bully who sells patriotism like a pimp.
Maher also called Palin and Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann crazy people.
Trust me, it's not because they have breasts, it's because they are boobs.
If a Republican said something like that,
You're absolutely right. That is repulsive. There are a lot of fair weather feminists who have not called him out on that. And we need to defend Sarah Palin in the same way that we defend Hillary Clinton. And for this simple reason, well, there are many reasons, but unless we defend and address our own liberal misogyny, it stops more women from getting into the political process, from running for office, so that we actually have equal representation, which will lead to equal pay, and which will lead to leaving politicians out of our doctors'
Who you are matters to what you can say. So Beyonce is one of the leading voices on the Shriver Report. She's married to Jay-Z, who arguably goes around making millions of dollars because he calls women bitches and whores.
maybe Republicans are sexist. When they held a committee hearing on contraception and religious freedom, all the witnesses they picked seemed to be male. Democratic Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney said this.
Where are the women? When I look at this panel, I don't see one single woman.
Panel on contraception?
This was from back in 2012, and it wasn't supposed to be a panel on contraception. It was supposed to be a panel on religious liberty, and it was the first of a series of panels. Optically, it was unbelievably stupid. Republicans are dumb about the visuals and how they will be manipulated. But they thought it was a conversation about religious liberty. They did not think, and Darrell Issa had been explicit, that it was not supposed to be about contraception in this particular hearing, and it was used as a staged opportunity to say, we have a war on women. The war on women had been predetermined to be a useful campaign strategy. There's a group that Nancy Pelosi runs weekly, and they had looked at Obama's sinking numbers at the beginning of 2012 and said, if we're going to make hay with this constituency, we need to have a meme, and what they came up with was war on women. And that's why you saw issue after issue being phrased by the playbook that way. It does work.
Let's go on to the next topic here. Jamu, I assume you're happy that it's no longer legal for a health insurance company to discriminate against you women by charging you more than they charge men. And President Obama likes to point that out.
You can't be charged more if you're a woman. Those days are over.
Yes, of course I'm extremely happy, and as I said before, as are the men in the women's lives. Now, I come from a family, and I think many people do, who my mom put our health care before hers. She put my dad's health care before hers. I think there are many women. We're not going to the doctor more, and we should not be charged.
But that's
We
the
should
point.
not
What
be
do you mean?
charged.
Hold on here. The CDC says even excluding pregnancy visits, women were 33% more likely to visit a doctor.
Do you want to live in a country where you charge women more than men? Is that the
Yes.
type of country you want
Yes,
to
when
live
it comes
into?
to insurance.
We have differential insurance rates.
That's not the country I think that most families, and especially, again, the men who support the women in their lives, want to
So
see.
you and I should pay the same car insurance rates and life insurance rates?
Well, I don't know if you're as good of a driver as I am, John.
No, there's
I'm
sex
charging much
differences.
more because men, on average, have more accidents. And you get to live 7 years longer, so you pay less
You know
for
that
life
actually
insurance.
the gap is coming down, which is concerning.
But prices exist as a mechanism of reflecting a certain reality. How much supply, how much demand, how much need, how much expense. It's just as when you go to work for somebody, what you get paid is a function of whether you add more value than it costs them to hire you. Similarly with insurance, is what you're going to cost the insurance company more or less, statistically speaking, and there's reams of data on this. And it's not
So I
just
guess
your-
what we're saying is that when a woman gets pregnant and needs to go to the doctor, she did that all by herself.
No, we're saying that a woman tends to use a doctor more, but you also know that a woman is paying less for her car insurance, and she's paying less for her life insurance, and she pays
Would that
less
be
for other
illegal?
things. And maybe according to you, we should be paying more car insurance and we should, so that young men don't have to pay nearly as much as they do, and even older men don't need to pay as much, because
Car
under
insurance
your,
has nothing to do with the
it has
pursuit of
everything
life.
to do with it.
Car insurance isn't a similar
Car
issue?
insurance has nothing to do with the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness.
Jamu is willing to stick men with additional costs and not have parity there, but she wants men and children to pay for the costs of older people and women.
I'm glad, I thought your organization represented women, but
We
I'm
do.
glad you're the spokesperson for why men are being so screwed
No.
by our health insurance.
Now, what screws up health
Program.
insurance insurance is third-party payers an inaccurate reflection of actual prices and what people actually want to purchase. It is being required to pay for things that you don't want, and it is being covered in a way that gives you no responsibility for
It
your
is
own
in the best
choices.
interest of our society that women are healthy, that
Yes.
we have access to affordable health care.
I agree.
It is in
Car
the best
insurance?
interest
The car insurance
of
and life
not just the
insurance, too?
women, but again, the men in these women's lives.
We don't
And that's
disagree
why
on any
this
of
is
that.
one of the most well-supported parts of the Affordable Care Act.
That's because people who don't understand insurance are supporting it.
Let me just close. When the Titanic went down, there was that moment where they said, women and children first. Is that sexist?
Yeah.
Children, I understand.
There's sexism way throughout our society, but I'm also from Texas, and I will sit here and admit I like a door to be open for me, and I hope that's okay.
Thank you, Jamal. Thank you, Heather. To keep this conversation going on Facebook or Twitter, use that hashtag War on Women. Let people know what you think. Coming up, the difference between the sexes.